Hey there, it's Dusty Thunder with another Reddit story for you, but this one's one of these.
It's a spicy story!
Muy caliente. All right, title of this story is, Am I the astronaut to divorce my husband and leave him with the kid after finding out I'm not biologically the mom? I can't believe my life has come to this. All I ever do is go out of my way to help others, but on the few occasions I need help, nobody ever comes through for me. I, 36 female, have been with my husband, 35 male, for a total of almost 10 years, married for 7. We had what I thought was my child by surrogate over 2 years ago, because after 4 years of trying to conceive with no success despite medical interventions, it turns out I am unable to carry a child to term. I have always wanted to be a mom. Devastated is an understatement regarding how I felt when I found out I have a medical condition that would make it nearly impossible to carry a baby to term. It was even more upsetting when I had to get major surgery to remove uterine growths with the hope to increase fertility, and complications during surgery warranted a partial hysterectomy involving removal of my uterus only. I still had my ovaries, so we started looking into cost of a surrogate. It is really expensive. My close friend since college, who'd already had 2 kids of her own, offered to serve as the surrogate for us to cut down on costs. After 2 disappointing IVF sessions that did not result in pregnancy, she became pregnant on the 3rd try and carried a boy to term for us. I was so happy and busy after the birth between being a mom and returning to work after a 4-week parental leave, so I didn't notice any warning signs. I should have noticed the red flags and warning signs early on, but I did not because I was so exhausted from working so much at my stressful job and 2 part-time jobs to cover most of the bills and anticipated medical and legal costs associated with this friend becoming our surrogate. I was the primary breadwinner. Damn. My friend and my husband started talking more, and I would sometimes come home from my weekend job to find her already hanging out at our house when my husband was there. I chalked it up as innocuous, and it's good for her to know my husband better since she was in the process of hopefully carrying our child for us. I was grateful to have someone helping us have a child. I also thought it weird that our son has brown eyes when both of us have blue. Then I found out that while this is uncommon, it's possible sometimes due to many genes controlling eye color. Recently, it all came to a head when I took our son to a doctor's appointment, and they did a metabolic panel and blood test, which showed that he had a blood type that is not biologically possible to have with me as his mother. He's B positive, I'm A positive, husband is O positive. Immediately, I started worrying it was the fertility clinic's fault and that they'd messed up and implanted the wrong embryo. I started lining up lawyer consultations to possibly sue the clinic and looked into having a DNA parentage test done. The test results show that I'm not the mother, but my husband still is the father. I was heartbroken and angrier than ever. Talked to lawyers about medical malpractice in the fertility clinic we'd used. Then my husband confessed that he'd slept with my friend, our surrogate, on a few different occasions during our struggle to have her get pregnant with our embryos. Holy shit. You know what? Okay, it's not the end, but I gotta interject here because he waited until she had talked to multiple lawyers about suing the gosh heckin' IVF clinic before he's like, it could be because it could be. I just thought of this. I forgot. But I just remembered it could be because, yeah. This means what I thought was our son conceived by IVF and carried with the surrogate isn't my son at all and was in fact conceived the old-fashioned way, which I can't ever do. Livid and absolutely broken at the same time doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. I have been breaking down into crying spells over and over again about this. He claims he didn't ever think pregnancy could result because he pulled out, and he had always assumed that he was the reason from our earlier struggles to conceive, both before my hysterectomy and during the IVF insemination process with his friend. This friend, not his friend. I felt an immediate triple betrayal from what was supposed to be my husband, my friend, and now knowing my child isn't even really mine. I had such white-hot rage and delirium. I immediately left home and stayed at a hotel for almost a week before asking my parents to let me stay at home for a while. I admit I left our son with him. I'm now filing for divorce because he cheated and betrayed me in the worst possible way. I have also cut off my friendship with my friend, the surrogate, and feel afraid to trust anyone else now. I have seen a divorce lawyer to see about giving up my legal rights to this kid so I don't have to face such betrayal or owe child support. My husband and friend/surrogate admit they were wrong and keep apologizing, but also called me immature and heartless to just give up on my son like that. My parents also say I can't just give up on a kid like that when I went through so many legal and medical hoops to have him. When I told them I refused to stay in a cheater marriage and I'd rather adopt someday with a better, more trustworthy partner, they also told me that I was wrong and that maintaining my parental rights isn't much different than if I adopted outright. They said it isn't blood that makes a family. They are all about my divorcing my cheater husband, but keep telling me I'm making a mistake giving up my parental rights. Some of my other friends agree with what I'm doing. A few admitted they weren't big enough to swallow pride and care for an affair baby, or to see daily reminders of my friend/surrogate's betrayal every time I looked at her son. I just want a clean break and a fresh start. I'm also looking at relocating several states away. AITA to give up my parental rights in the divorce because a kid I paid a lot of money to have, born by surrogacy, isn't biologically mine at all, but the surrogate. TLDR. I recently found out that a son that my husband and I had born to a surrogate, since I'm infertile, is biologically my husband's kid but not mine. My husband confessed that he slept with my friend who served as surrogate during the long IVF process, so the kid is actually conceived of an affair between my husband and friend/surrogate. I'm filing for divorce and looking to give up my parental rights so I can move away to get a clean break from the whole situation without having to owe child support for a kid that's not mine. Some friends agree with my plan, but my husband and parents think I'm in the wrong to just cut off a kid I raised for 2 years. Okay, so that's a part I've been waiting for. It's also the end of the story. This kid's 2? This kid's 2 years old? I mean, look, if this child was like still a wee little baby, and there's only, I understand what you're feeling right now, but this kid's 2. And there's been a humanity switch flipped because the only way that you could not, like, it doesn't matter. Like right now, Navy's 3. I don't care. I don't care, who Navy, if we found out someday that she was born by someone else and, like IVF messed up, it wouldn't matter because she's our daughter and we love her. So to not have that part after 2 years is deeply concerning. Maybe it's like the trauma has just flipped the humanity switch and now like that part hasn't set in yet. Maybe reality hasn't set in yet, but it's enough for her to walk away right now, which is deeply concerning. I think if he was much younger, if this kid was much younger, my question would be, look, is the friend/surrogate interested in becoming mother figure? Is she already kind of moving in that direction? Like, what's the story there? Because if you kept this up, now knowing what you know, there is the risk that someday she's like, hi, I'm actually mommy, and tries to just boot you out and then take your husband, and then you're in a freaking mess, right? You've got, I don't know. That's the only way where I could look at this and be like, that sort of makes sense. And that would be if this baby was like brand spanking new. 2 years old, I don't understand. I don't understand how someone could be capable of that. I understand you've been hurt, but I don't understand like how the bond that you have built with your child after 2 years isn't strong enough to prevent this from happening. That's concerning. I know the baby's a constant reminder of the betrayal, but for the past 2 years, he hasn't been. And for the past 2 years, OP has been this child's mom, and like that it doesn't just go away. You don't flip a switch and that all just disappears. Whether OP wants to believe that or not, it doesn't work like it doesn't just disappear. I understand there's going to be a struggle. I understand it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying that it is going to be easy, but it's also not impossible for a child that you already love to keep loving them in spite of where they came from. It's tough. I mean, I understand this is a Kobayashi Maru, right? It's a lose-lose. There's no situation where OP wins here at all. I mean, if she walks, she destroys this bond, and I think this is one of those Horcrux moments where you actually split your soul. Either way, like you get a fracture in your soul, regardless of what you do here. If you walk away from this child that you spent 2 years being a mother to, you get a fracture in your soul. If you stay and you get the constant reminder of this every day for the rest of your life, you get a fracture in your soul for that too. There's no win here. This is Kobayashi Maru for OP. I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk away. I just couldn't freaking do it. I understand why she's at where she's at. Adopting a baby is very different from raising your husband's affair baby. And if that was something she found out way early on, I could understand this a lot. It's the 2 years thing where I'm like, damn, and it's not a sunk cost fallacy because it's the It's more about the bond strength after that time, not the amount of time that has been invested here. We're checking on some additional comments here. Okay, well, let's go and read this one. We have freshly found a comment in the story here. Here's a comment from OP. He actually had the audacity to claim that my depression and obsession with pregnancy and having a kid pushed him away. He also said he felt deprived of affection because I was working so much, even though I was the primary breadwinner and the only responsible spouse keeping up with the bills. If I hadn't taken on extra work, he would not have stepped up, and the loan I took out to pay for uncovered medical expenses, especially IVF, would have gone unpaid. I don't know for sure if it was unprotected or not. I'm assuming it was, but he did make a ridiculous statement that he didn't think anything like this would happen because he thought maybe he was part of the problem with our lack of conception. It is absolutely ridiculous to say this because if he was the problem causing the infertility, then they would have never been able to form viable embryos from him and I. I think he said this as a lame excuse. Anyone with half a brain would know not to have relations with a surrogate during the IVF wait period, and more importantly, why would any respectful husband want to anyway? Another comment here says, NTA, leave your husband, friend, and kid. They can play family themselves since that is clearly what they wanted when they started. They can take care of the kid. You can take care of you first. OP's response, there's a real chance that my husband might actually end up becoming a single dad. I don't know how or if the supposed friend who is supposed to be our surrogate would have. She already has 2 kids from a previous relationship who are older. She said before that she was done having kids of her own, which is why she was okay with serving as a surrogate since it would mean helping out, but not having to take responsibility of raising a kid. I don't know how she feels really because I haven't talked to her and I do not want to talk to her. The one time I contacted her after my husband confessed, I admit I exploded on her. So did he, by the way. And she hung up on me a few minutes later. Okay. Oh, he's got one more comment. The commenter says, you raised that baby though. Don't you have some love for it? I guess you're mad, but don't take it out on the child. That's so sad. It loves you, and you're the only mommy it knows. Edit to clarify, I think your NTA and your husband and friend are huge pieces of shit. It's just a sad situation. I can't help but think of the baby. I'm a softie. I totally get where you're coming from, though. Do what's best for you. OP's response, I keep vacillating back and forth on this. I have grown to love him, but at the same time, it angers me so much looking at him and seeing the resemblance of the girl who was supposed to be my friend. I mentioned before that his eyes are brown. Now that I know the truth, I keep noticing more and more resemblances. I worry that I will take my anger out on him. I don't feel I'm the safest person to be around him right now with everything going on. Okay, I understand it. I get it. I understand everything that she's saying, but the most important part of that statement to me is right now. I understand you feel that way right now. I get that. It is... But this is a forever decision. This is not a right now decision. This is a forever decision. It's terrible. And it's a Kobayashi Maru. Again, this is a lose-lose. There is no win for OP here. It is what would keep me from being able to walk away from this child is the right now part of that, knowing that yeah. But to her point, not the right now, but the forever part of it is that resentment based on appearance that gets triggered every time she looks at him. Yeah, she could end up treating him like shit uncontrollably. I don't know. It's a Kobayashi Maru. I don't think there is no win. There is no right decision here. There is everything is. That's where it's at.